I'm sitting in anticipation, watching of what's going to happen with obviously the popularity of the high dose SLU, and I think you're going to try it, Steve.
I'm on it right now. Now, let me tell you this: it's easy to get lean and difficult to get fat. So yeah, so far so good. But I'll do some blood work and then I'll make a video about it and then draw my conclusions.
What's the total usage?
400 milligrams per day.
No, of everything combined.
Everything combined. Oh, yeah. You have 20 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So I was on 300 tests, 300 Deca, and 150 Tren because I ran out of mint. So it's 750 milligrams total. So that's pretty okay steroid-wise. Then I did 1 milligram Increlex and mitochondrial support stack. So that's 1 milligram MOD-C, 1 milligram SS31, 10 milligrams methylene blue, and then a whopping, albeit animal dose extrapolated, clinically approved dose for animals, 400 milligrams per day. Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 15. That's 1 year and 3 months. Good luck finding other podcasts that last so long. With Dr. Dean St. Mart and Kurt Havens, we're going to discuss about kidney health. But first, let's talk about combining test, Nandrolone, Trestolone, and Trenbolone. I wanted to do this. I'm like, you know what? Forget about it. Everybody says it's a bad idea. The combination of 300 test, 300 Deca, and 150 Trestolone has been good so far. So I stocked up on Tren, and then I wanted to prepare my my sterile vial with the following combination: 300 test, 300 Deca, 150 Trestolone, and starting with 25 milligrams of Tren, and then just doubling it every week to the point I break. And then I ran out of Trestolone. I had 50 milligrams left, and I contacted my source. They're like, dude,
it's nothing right now.
Primo, Mastrone, and Trestolone, forget about it. So the test, Deca, and Tren it is.
Which
so let's see next episode acetate? If I'm in a good
acetate. Okay. Yeah. And so you were daily dosing the Tren and the test and the mint, and then you were doing weekly injections.
No, the mint. So I had to replace the mint for the Trenbolone because the mint ran out. So I'll have like 1 week of 50 milligrams of mint and 25 milligrams of Tren and 300 Deca, 300 test, and I just dump it all the week's worth into a sterile vial, and then I draw what I need.
Okay, swirled around.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all microdosages daily. Yeah.
Okay.
But this 300 test, 300 Deca, and 150 Trestolone, I have a great mood. Now, I take methylene blue and fluvoxamine, so I'm sure that has something to do with it.
There's probably some level of balance happening with the fluvoxamine, a mitochondria level. You got a good balance probably between serotonin and dopamine, so one's probably not as dominant as would normally be in a normal environment if someone wasn't using an SSRI.
Yeah, I think so too.
You'd be sort of anticipating with that potent combination that you're going to be either very, very high in terms of like very elated and let's go do shit, and then the complete opposite where the Jekyll and Hyde scenario happens where the aggressive side comes out, which probably can happen in the gym if you're a very controlled emotional person. I think we touched on it before that as you get older and you've got emotional maturity and you've got emotional intelligence, you can almost contain that aggression for when you train, or release that aggression when you train, and not allow it to interfere with personal or professional life.
So you can be bipolar, but you have to release the one side of the bipolarness in the gym only, nowhere else. So let's see, maybe 4 to 5 weeks from now, I turn into a total dickhead. And then my wife will tell me, I like you better on that previous cycle. But babe, I can't find Trestolone. So, well, you got to throw in the Mastrone then, baby. Guys, how are you? We haven't talked in 5 weeks? Kurt, what's been going on with you in the meantime?
Same stuff, man. Just coaching.
Yeah. Just coaching. Yeah.
Yep.
Fully
working
booked.
On that thing and working on that project with AJ. We're just trying to get that.
All right.
When we can align our schedules, we film. We should hopefully, within a week or two, we should have enough to get that up online, and then we'll continue to add content to it. It's not, it's a little different than the other online stuff I've done or that's out there. It's not geared toward bodybuilders. It's more geared toward lifestyle guys and fathers specifically, or husbands.
I should sign up.
It's meant to be, you should sign up.
Yeah, it's been 2 months.
It's just geared to help men become more optimal and how they incorporate all of these lifestyle things, in a sane way. Because we're just seeing a lot of we both realize that there's just a lot of really poor thinking out there, as you know, everything becomes obsessive, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
You know, and using all these silly things. While we make content about some of these obscure compounds, most guys don't need to be using 12 different things, right? Most guys could just use TRT. They don't need to add. It's not going to bring much to the table for most guys to add this stuff. You know.
No, but it's Pandora's box, right? I always tell that on the podcast. Is once you start TRT, then it's TRT plus, and then it's HRT plus, and then you start adding pluses to the point you're plus size, or you're like a 10-star rating.
Yeah.
You know, like five stars on GTA when you get chased by the cops.
I think the funny thing will be, I just want to put it out here first. I think the interesting thing will be, as Primo and Mastron go the way of the dinosaur, Equipoise is going to come back. And all the people that talk down on Equipoise are going to eat their words, and they're going to slowly transition into talking about Equipoise again. It's going to be kind of interesting. The other possibility,
those studies on kidney health, that's why we're doing the kidney podcast today.
Well, we need to keep that in mind, right? We got rat studies with the dose. It doesn't equate to a human dose, much larger, right? We have case studies, and I can tell you firsthand, a case study that's done in a hospital with someone in kidney failure that's doing steroids is going to lie about what they're using. It wasn't necessarily EQ. We don't know what he was on.
No, I picked those studies apart when I did that deep dive like 2 years ago. It was 2 hours because people were so worried. So it's like, okay, I'll do a deep dive for you guys.
Yeah. So if I stood over you in a white lab coat and your kidney's failing, and I'm like, Steve, what are you on? You're very nervous, right? You think you're dying. You think you're going to get hooked up to a bunch of machines. You're going to become a really poor history teller. And you're going to say, whatever you think I want to hear, you're not going to necessarily tell me what you were doing, right? Were you using DMP? Probably. Were you doing stuff that you shouldn't have done that actually destroyed your kidneys? Probably.
I forgot my Telmisartan that
it was not 600 milligrams of EQ that destroyed the guy's kidneys. The other one that's going to be interesting to see, I'll give people a really easy shortcut. You could probably accomplish the same thing that Primo does by using a little bit of Arimidex and a little bit of Proviron. Probably do the same damn thing. Because I'm not really convinced Primo does anything on its own, right? In every study about Primobolan, it pretty much failed to grow muscle. On its own. They even stimulated lats. They stimulated the lats on a sheep, right, to get it to grow, and it literally grew no tissue.
Really?
I would say Primo to me is a test modifier.
You're talking about Mastron or Primo now?
What's that?
Are you talking about Mastron or Primo?
Primo. What study shows that Primo grew any significant amount of tissue over placebo?
And it's been a while since I made that deep dive. I know with Mastron, I couldn't find any scientific evidence that it grew muscle.
Oh, well, Mastron's a cosmetic drug. I've always said that Mastron didn't do anything.
No. Primo is blood building, though. It does increase hematocrit, unlike Mastron.
Which is technically anabolic. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, but as from a tissue growth point of view, I'm not against Primo. I think it makes your testosterone work better, is what my stance is.
I think that's the case with most DHT derivatives.
So all my point is, like, we're not really missing much by Primo being out of the market. There's plenty of other ways to do it.
I do like my Primo. Luckily, I have stock.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I stocked up. Right? We talked about this how many months ago? 8 months ago, and I went through my Rolodex.
And I said,
hey, and this a buddy of mine brought me 30 ampules of Primobolan last batch, so I'm good. But yeah, running a test deca and Tren now, so let's see if I survive. Dean, you went on holiday.
I did. That's why
representing the dad bod.
We're delayed in our recording at my vacation.
That's all right.
So yeah, it was well needed. But like anyone who's listening on this, and if you run a business, you don't really switch off. You check your emails in the morning for half an hour when the kids are still sleeping. And other than that, only urgent needs were taken care of, and the rest of it sat until I came home. So I came back to a nice list on Friday last week to plow through, but we're back on course again. So definitely 2-week vacation. Well needed, nice food, nice time on the beach, nice tan. What more can you ask for?
Nice hair.
Did you put any other dads to shame over there in the beach?
You know what, right? And I guess this would be fun for those who are listening. When you transition out of being a bodybuilder, and I've done this before with my retirement in 2022, but this time I am mentally, that's it. It's the end of competitive bodybuilding.
Sure. We've heard this before.
In
I tell
saying
myself
that,
every year.
Is it like muscle dysmorphia would be? Like muscle dysmorphia would be that you don't see yourself as big enough. Maybe it's like shredomorphia, but like you look at yourself and you think, oh, I could be more conditioned. And then like someone's probably looking at you and thinking, geez, that guy's ripped. And in your head, you're like comparing yourself to how you looked last year at like 4% body fat. And you're thinking, man, I'm still fat here. And I remember like before we went away on holiday, I had planned to do the diet that we talked about back in like May, June. I had some stuff where my father got ill, business took over. So really, and then I tore ligaments in my back literally 3 weeks before our holiday that I couldn't train in the gym. So at that point, I'd already pulled the train out after like 6 weeks. When things took over at life, I was like, I'm not going to see the end of this diet considering how life is becoming. So I'm not under any pressure to get in condition for a holiday. Like mentally, you're like, I'm going to turn up probably in better shape than most guys, not being ignorant, but you're going to be in a better condition than the average person. And so that sort of pressure to get into like ripped condition sort of came away from me a little bit. And then when I tore my ligaments in my back and I literally couldn't train for the 3 weeks before the vacation, when I got away on holiday, you're like looking at yourself and you've got a six pack, you look in condition, but in your head you're still thinking you're a fat beep. But it's
disappointed in yourself.
You know, you're so exactly. But like that is how polarizing bodybuilding and getting in bodybuilding condition can do that. When you step away from it and you can accept how you look visually, and that you're not looking for more muscle mass, but you're still thinking in your head, man, you're so fat. And then you're thinking of what you're going to destroy to eat on holiday. Obviously with me, it's not much with gluten-free, but you're still thinking, I'm going to have this amount of food at dinner. I'm going to have a nice steak and have all these sort of things. But then part of your head is like, man, you could be so much more conditioned.
You just got to ask the wife if you look good enough. If she says, don't worry, you're still fuckable, then it's okay.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. That's all reassurance. Obviously Morgan as well is, from when I was a competitor, she's critical. She'll tell you, you're getting a bit fat there, or you're looking a bit puffy.
You got to put the premise in there. Say, babe, how do I look? Do I look good enough for holiday? You say, yeah, for holiday you look okay, but for the stage, forget about it. You know.
So
yeah.
I've been boring. I've been back just straight up physiological. I've got nothing with everything going on. I've got barely enough time to try and train at the moment. So again, it's just a matter of trying to fit a couple of sessions in training at the moment for me. And my back, one of the things that the ligament tear in my back caused was the nerve running from L4 down my leg was irritated. Literally the most stupidest injury you could think about. I went to pick up a plate from a weight tray with a straight back and a curved back. I reached over to pull the plate off the tray and all I felt was my hip go click clunk, and when I stood up I was like, oh, that wasn't right. So I basically like self-adjusted my hip and moved my hip to the right, and so the ligaments between L4 and the sacral iliac ligaments, they got torn. Luckily between Morgan, Martin, the guy who I see, and then we've Dr. Lauren, she's a chiropractor beside SN Hub. She adjusted me, but she was like, you really put your hips out of alignment with just lifting that plate. Like you've basically self-adjusted yourself the wrong way. And that's lifting a plate. I literally walked into the gym to start deadlifts. First plate lifted, and the guy beside me, when I lifted the plate off, he looked at me and he's like, that didn't look good. And I'm standing there, my brain is trying to register what I'd done, because obviously it's not like when you tear like a muscle, or you I guess you do something with like your QL, or you sort of cause a muscle spasm, it's a different feeling, or one of your muscles locks up. This was like my brain was trying to figure out what the hell had happened, with like this electric sensation ran up my leg. My spine just felt like it wasn't in the right place.
So you went straight home, or did you finish your workout?
I went straight home.
Yeah, okay.
I went straight home, and we were supposed to go to a kids concert event in Belfast that we'd booked. Morgan, thankfully, we had like an hour planned in that morning for me to train. So Morgan treated me instead of training in her in her clinic, had me like semi straight again to walk around. But literally, I then went to England that week and had the hips adjusted and everything else. So feels good now, but I'm still a bit cautious that when you do something like that, you get a false sense of confidence with those lower lumbar ligaments that I'll start slowly.
All machines from now on.
Pretty much the lazy way of training. I did do a little bit. We had like a home gym sort of thing in the apartment complex on holiday, and that felt good to do some really light stuff. But getting back into it now.
You did exercise mimetic exercises.
It's a pity I didn't pack. Obviously, we can delve into it later. I didn't bring anything like that with me, and obviously, with the end of the diet, I will say, during that 3-week non-training period, I did keep continuing with SLU and the mitochondria stuff that I do put down to helping maintain body composition with no training. I was obviously a little flat looking, but you'd be surprised what you maintain with very little training. And then
it usually takes like a month or two before it really goes away. And then it's like from one day to the next, you wake up, you're like, what the hell happened? You know, did I get sarcopenia overnight?
Well, it's with chemicals in place with natural people, there's been a bunch of studies to show how fast you lose it. There was a group, they did a study, they had people exercise for 12 weeks. They gained obviously various amounts of tissue, right, depending on their genes, all natural. Then they had half of them stop lifting for 10 days. The group who stopped lifting for 10 days lost all of the tissue they gained for those 12 weeks. So 3 months of training gone in 10 days. That's without drugs. So atrophy occurs. And this is one of the reasons why a bro split doesn't work outside of being enhanced, because the atrophy effect, right? So you got about 2 days where it's ramped up and then it goes right back down. So if you hit chest every Monday, you're literally doing 2 steps forward, 1.5 backwards. That's why natural guys don't grow doing that stuff.
No, right? That's why push-pull legs atrophy, or some sort of overlap training works a lot better.
Frequency is much more important than volume.
I remember when I broke my leg in a motorcycle accident, and then by the time I flew home from Thailand to Holland, my leg was half the size. And that's like 5 days later. And I was at the peak of my, natural, not at the peak and not at the end of my natural limit, but I was pretty close. And that leg was completely atrophied in a week. Insane.
Yeah.
Just from immobility. And thank God. Don't break your legs in a motorcycle accident, guys. Don't do it.
How's everything been with the plate out?
Yeah, it's great, actually. I got the gyno removed and the plate out, so now I actually have an excuse to do a show, but I just don't want to. I'm just using the drugs and getting lean and enjoying myself. It's my birthday, end of the month, so we got a Fit for 42 challenge for myself. And now that I put the work on a little bit of a downturn, so I don't force myself to be cognitively present during the day where I have to do deep research. I haven't done any deep research in a very long time. So I go to the gym when I want. I eat when I want. If I'm tired, it doesn't matter. And the rest of the time I spend with my daughter. So it's actually good. It's very productive for training when I put in the towel on my business. And business is just continuous. So luckily I didn't skip a beat. I think eventually it will. But for now, the income is steady and I'm just enjoying my bodybuilding. So I'm getting leaner slowly. I think I got about 8 weeks left. And then, but in 4 weeks, it should look pretty good. Yeah. I think in 4 weeks, I'll take the deck and the Tren out, and then I'll put some DHT derivatives for the cosmetic effect and see what I actually look like. Because now I'm basically a water balloon at the end of the day. In the morning, I'm like, yeah. It's funny though, like a couple of days ago, I looked in the mirror from afar. I'm like, who the fuck's that big guy? I said, oh, it's me. When you train back, your rear delts and your traps are all pumped up and you start walking in a tank top. You're like, who the fuck is that new guy in the gym? I said, oh, it's me. Okay, we're on the right track. So I'm having a lot of fun, bodybuilding and being a dad and driving motorcycles. It sucks though, because every time I want to take my bike out, it starts raining. I have to take it out in the middle of the night because it's the traffic is so much more favorable. So yesterday and like the whole last week, 12 o'clock at midnight, it's like, let's take a bike out, and I go outside, raining.
Postpone. Probably a bit too dangerous with considering the power of your bike.
Yeah, and I just don't like riding in the rain. It's not fun, you know. I like it to be sunny and hot, and then you blast. No, speed limit. Speed limit, I stay. Hey, Kurt, you found a study about exercise pills not really being metabolic boosters. So let's discuss that. Let me share my screen.
I woke up feeling spicy.
Yeah, feeling rebellious.
I guess to sort of open what this paper discusses is what we already know to be insanity of expecting to take a pill that will do the exact same as exercise. Whereas what
or
we've
less,
done...
Or less. It's going to do less than exercise.
Yeah, well, that's it. But what I mean is what we come at the angle of is some of these things that it discusses in the paper alongside exercise. So this is sort of coming at the angle of what society would want to do, and let's just pop a pill and say that they exercised for an hour. It's
the same with the Trevogrumab and Garitasmab, right? What they want is to take a pill and it grows muscle. Yeah. Which, I mean, some steroids, oral steroids do that to a certain extent. I mean, testerone build tissue without exercise.
Tren will do it to an extent, depending.
If you're a cow, caveat.
I mean, we touched on this. It more has to do with the age and the stem cell availability that the cow has at the time it's given. It's not most human males are already at their natural genetic limit. You can't. The same as if you give Trenbolone to a bull, they don't grow.
Right.
So we would be considered bulls. You give a Trenbolone, you have it walk around and eat grass, it's not going to grow. But that's not a Trenbolone fault. That's an age fault or a maturation fault from testosterone. What I find interesting is the problem I see with all these pills is that it breeds laziness, right? Everyone's looking for this excuse or this thing that's going to get them to the next level. There is no thing that's going to get you there. And in fact, the laziness is so extreme now that so when I posted it originally, I put just the abstract in my stories. Right. And then the next slide, I linked the whole story because I figured, well, if I want people to actually understand this stuff, they should probably read the whole study. And I know that most people probably don't know how to find the study. So I posted the link. The amount of DMs I got commenting on it and asking me what my opinion was when I gave them the study was like just reaffirm the laziness. It's like they literally
they don't want to read it themselves.
And they don't want to read it. You're going to ask me and you're not going to read it. If I were your teacher, I'd fail you. No joke.
You know what the title of this podcast is going to be? Exercise Mimetics Don't Work. I got to bait them in, man.
That is a bait. No, it's not that it doesn't work, but the study's just showing it's not a replacement for exercise. And that's all I've been saying since day one when you guys brought this stuff up is
it
and
it's very true.
Replace exercise? No, I do cardio. I run 20 miles a week. I guarantee my mitochondria is better than anyone that uses these stupid drugs.
True. True. What's funny? What's funny with these drugs is that the term exercise mimetics always comes from the animal models, right? They discuss that here in the study. They go over ICAR and Cardarine and metformin is discussed a little bit, and they all discuss mitochondrial health here in this study. The term exercise mimetic is basically a comparison in this high-fat diet model or high-fat, high-carb diet model where mice or rats are exposed to. And then they do one exercise group and one drug group and see that the results are comparable. But, if it speeds up metabolism, it doesn't mean that it gives you the same metabolic and hormonal response as exercise. Because if you do research on exercise, what it releases, it releases growth hormone, testosterone, vascular endothelial growth factor, brain-derived neurotropic factor. MOTC levels go up from exercise. I discussed that in the MOTC deep dive. And none of these studies show that SLU-PP-332 or ICAR or metformin or whatever increase MOTC levels or any of these other hormonal markers that exercise does increase.
Look at GLPs. We produce GLP. They're a naturally occurring thing. And you know what they come from? Dietary fiber. So the average American eats no fiber. They wonder why their gut's a mess. and then they need to take a drug to basically replace the oatmeal that they should be eating anyway.
Yeah.
Not to piss in people's oatmeal, but it doesn't make any sense. Just do the damn work, right? If you want to add to that work by taking performance enhancing things, so be it. But don't try to use them as an excuse not to do things, right?
No, and that's what we see quite often is that, people in the comment section, compound XYZ didn't work. It's probably because you didn't work.
Yeah, you didn't work. Exactly. Your diet sucks. Your training sucks. You don't do any cardio, right? You're not getting sleep. You're stressed out.
Yeah, oxidative stress and all that stuff. And your mitochondria are just broken. So it might take some time to fix them. And it starts, again, with the diet and, making sure that that's all on point first.
But even exercise and comparing it to a single compound, so an exercise mimetic being a chemical. So let's be even more strict. So a single chemical can do the exact same work in our bodies as exercise being at the top of it, moving our muscular system. And from that, then you use your cardiovascular system. And from the cardiovascular system, you have blood and nutrients going to the tissues, and then the tissues using those nutrients for X, Y, and Z, or doing exercise without nutrients available, operating off another energy system. It's bonkers to ever think that we could develop a single compound, a single chemical that you ingest orally or inject, and is going to have the same effect as moving your muscular system alongside obviously your skeleton and your cardiovascular system and all the benefits that come from that. It's just crazy. Yeah. So
post up an image of human metabolism, like the map of human metabolism, so people can see this. When people try to summarize this in a statement like this does this, I don't know I know some pretty smart people. I don't know a single person that can explain this whole diagram.
Yeah, it's that diagram. And when we're looking at like the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle being a tiny little part of this whole big map, it's profound to even ever make absolute statements. And I guess that's where when we're talking about things like SLU, cardiometabolic, lipotropin, GH fragment, all these little things that play into helping move your skeleton, like resistance training, cardio exercise. We're using these things to augment the processes, not actually be the process.
No, right.
And that's the key thing to take away from.
I will say that if you add these compounds in, stack them together with diet and exercise, it makes the diet and exercise significantly more effective and easier. Because I do remember, doing the whole diet and exercise thing, and getting leaner took significantly longer and was a lot more strenuous than it is now with these compounds in place. I also spend an arm and a leg. Well, the value is.
But you did it. I think that there's a lot of importance in doing it naturally, so you understand how your body works and what it responds to. Right? If you're 18 years old and you just throw drugs in the equation, you never actually learn what your body's doing, and then you become entirely reliant. Those are the same guys that when they either have to come off because their health fails or they go on a cruise, they lose all their tissue. Right? And they're constantly going up and down because they never learned how to train. I trained until I was natural. I was zero hormones until I was 40.
Wow, yeah.
And I could get more peeled. I mean, I showed you pictures. I could get leaner naturally than most pro bodybuilders are getting with all these freaking drugs because I have self-control and discipline. That's what you need to learn that first before you throw the chemicals in. Right? There's no substitution for work.
True.
Right?
No.
It doesn't matter what your genetics are.
I brought that up before, like long before. Well, I always go back and say if I could teach everything I know now to like my mid-20-year-old self who had no problem with self-control, losing body fat and everything from martial arts, that would be so much easier. But it does start with the ethic of having the control of, like, it really, like when people look at what it takes to get truly contest peeled to the point where there is no fat on your feet, on your glutes, sitting, standing hurts. Like, whilst we all have big smiles on our face, it bloody hurts.
Your feet, the feet are miserable when you walk.
When you have to wear three pairs of socks, and one of them is like those big, thick, fluffy socks as the final layer of socks. Like
you sit down, like you sit on something hard and you actually pinch your sciatic nerve because you got nothing left in your butt. And your legs are numb.
You know, I've said it before, what we've spoken about before with using GLPs, the mitochondria optimization. If you're someone who's had that ethic to get to that level of body fat, these things will make it a walk in the park. But if you're looking to use these things to get to that condition, well, you've already got a shortcut mentality where you are not really aiming to be as peel as possible. You're looking to be as conditional as possible with as minimal effort. Yeah. The ones who have gotten down to deep dug straight glutes will understand and appreciate the extra leverage that these things bring and make it more enjoyable, because quite honestly, the amount of cardio, the amount of dieting that's required repetitively to get down to those deep set points. We spoke about it before, but I chronicled in pictures on SN Education's forum before of like 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. And with each prep or long diet phase, I got harder and harder and harder because I broke through sticking points that you'd end up with at the end of a prep.
Yeah.
And you do have to do multiple diets to get past these plateaus more efficiently. Like, you get to a plateau and you've got two choices: either really dig in deep with more cardio, less food, and you will get conditioned, but you'll end up like a skeleton with loss of muscle mass in the process. That if anyone's listening and they're first or second time competitors, you need to understand what your limits are for that first long diet, if it is your first ever diet.
And the difference between off season and getting in shape is it's a mind fuck, for most guys. Like, I'm getting small. That prevents them from actually getting lean, because they never really get into that flat state that you need to be to really shave off that last little bit of body fat.
Yep. Same with guys trying to get big, right? They get stuck in this, as soon as their face shows a little bit of roundness or their body fat, like even slightly increases, they pull the food right back and they never grow, right? These are the guys that get stuck at 180 forever.
Main gaining, bro.
Well, they're not even doing that because I never let my body fat get in control, but I still had to eat.
Yeah.
Right. You can still control your body fat and grow. That's why I would refer to it as a progress season, not an off season, because you're not really off. That implies you're on vacation. There's no vacation when you want to look like a bodybuilder.
And then most guys in the off season, they start eating like hamburgers. Yeah, hamburgers.
Yeah, stick with
then I can eat. Why don't you eat the same things that got you lean? Just eat more of the same foods that got you lean. So you do. So you're a little bit of a surplus.
If you just double your carb portion, you'll grow.
Yeah,
it's really simple.
Actually that simple.
Lose some weight. It's really that simple. I know. Well, we've made it. The internet, I think. I was talking to my wife about that this morning. It's when I started doing this stuff, there was no internet. You had to look through books and stuff. I've said this a million times. It's incredibly frustrating to me because most of the information on the internet is either garbage or confusing or misleading or make it seem like this complicated thing. And it's not that difficult to get in shape. You have to do the damn work.
Yeah.
Right. But anyone can get in shape. I've never met anyone that couldn't get in shape. The ones that don't seem to do it are not putting in the work.
Yeah, it always surprises me, like now with the GLP-1 receptor agonist and this mitochondrial support stack, that people still cannot get in shape. Because it's so goddamn fucking easy on them.
Well, they're eating, they're just going to McDonald's 3 times a day to McDonald's 1 time a day. Right? The majority of the women in the United States who use a GLP are still doing as much cocaine and drinking Diet Coke as they were before the GLP. It's just, they're shit food. They don't exercise. Right? When that study we looked at last video, we ranked these things, was the initial, what was the first statement? It was about the population that uses GLP drugs. If they would simply exercise, they would not experience the side effects that you experience with these drugs, but no one wants to do that.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. Then it gets a bad rep. Yeah, I lost my vision on GLP-1s. So you stopped eating any kind of nutrition foods, and now you're, beta-carotene and vitamin A's.
I was in a meeting with pharmacists since our last video, and we were discussing GLPs, and at least the stance in the United States is that we don't know the long-term effects of any of these drugs. So no doctor, no pharmacist, no scientist, at least in the United States, can tell you that a GLP drug is safe long-term. We don't know, right? These drugs were rushed to the market. They continually rush to the market, and they're not necessarily safe. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying just be aware that especially if someone online is telling you that these are perfectly harmless, they're full of shit. We don't know that. No one can tell you that.
No. There's
Right?
plenty of
There's
side
nothing
effects
that's
in the
harmless.
scientific evidence. I mean, when I did a Erythritide deep dive, or even when I talked about Liraglutide, tirzepatide back in the day, you go through all the side effects and how you can mitigate them by just following a healthy lifestyle. Doesn't mean that they're not there. Like I just did my blood work to see because I haven't used a GLP-1 receptor agonist for a while. So I started back with Erythritide to make the diet a little bit more tolerable so that my mood stays intact. And it's either hardcore dieting and no mood or using a GLP-1 to suppress the appetite and then my mood is high. So it's, I'm trying to find a fucking balance. So that's why I use them, because my mood is so much better on a GLP-1, even though a lot of guys get depression on it, which is weird.
I've seen the research around that, which is quite fascinating, with the disruption to serotonin metabolism more so.
And dopamine as well.
And some of the suicidal tendencies that they're trying to postulate towards tirzepatide more so is what you see a lot of anecdotal reports surrounding, like increases in anxiety, and then the anxiety triggering off not nice thoughts. So like Kurt said, we talk about these things, we talk about mechanistic actions, but yeah, it's very well true that like us, we discuss these things, but there's never an absolute of you must do this or this is safe or whatever. There's people who will talk about these things and make them gospel, that everyone should be taking a GLP and everyone should be doing this, that, and the other. That just no way you could make these absolute statements towards stuff that existed for maybe, I think Liraglutide was released 15, 16 years ago, I think. Off the top of my head, it's not too long.
Before it hit the market, I think I first started using it about 4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years, because it was about 6 months before the Olympia. And then I started talking about it. Nobody talked about it, about liraglutide and semaglutide. And then I went to the Olympia and it was on all the billboards. Ozempic everywhere. I was like, is this my fault? Because nobody talked about it back then. So it's only been around for 4 years and you see plenty of issues, but that's always, or most of the time, in people who are unhealthy to begin with. So they were diabetic or they had, lifestyle issues.
To Dean's point, though, I think the drug was invented a long time ago. The drug was invented a long time ago. It just didn't come to the public eye. Like all these drugs, most of the time you don't see them for years. There's a process for the FDA to approve something.
So I've just looked it up there. Liraglutide was approved by the FDA in 2010 for the US and 2009 for the EU. So it's been around, like I said, about 15 years that these sort of first line things that were designed for type 2 diabetes, we just started to make the connection between the GLP-1 receptor improving pancreatic function, and then as a consequence, ghrelin becoming suppressed. That now, obviously, we're looking at using these compounds from an appetite suppression perspective, as opposed to type 2 diabetes and a pancreatic effect. That I think slowly over time, these things will be classed as, well, they're already classed, but they will become anti-obesity drugs as opposed to diabetic drugs. Because I think right now, in terms of how they're discussed, it's here's a diabetic drug that you can take off label, which will suppress your appetite.
Do you think they're going to make a combination with AOD 9604?
Well, the way it's going, and Bioglutide, eventually you're going to have this big giant protein that just serves bloody everything. And then maybe you're getting close to like what Kurt is on about with exercise mimetics, that you just got this big giant protein that has all these peptide chains coming off it.
It just diffuses into like 20 different peptides.
Which if anyone has any background in like drug development, creating protein drugs is a big wormhole in that if the protein incorrectly folds, you are FUCKED'd.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a pipe dream.
A few moments later.
Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 15, part 2. We had some technical difficulties the last time, And then scheduling happened. Kurt got busy, and Dean got busy, and I got busy. And now we're back for part 2. We were talking about Bioglutide. And I believe in the meantime, people are actually trying that, but I'm still not convinced that the Bioglutide that's on the market is actually real, because there's no CAS number. And the people that have been trying it so far, they've reported not really astronomical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you guys hear anything in the meantime?
No.
Not really, right?
No.
Just what people are showing with the oral Bioglutide, whatever it is, SS, whatever the code name is of it.
Yeah, and NA931, I think.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. I mean, time will tell when this, alongside the other mega dosing experiments we're seeing come out. Well, I'm sitting in anticipation, watching of what's going to happen with obviously the popularity of the high dose SLU, and I think you're going to try it, Steve.
I'm on it right now. Let me tell you this: it's easy to get lean and difficult to get fat. So it's basically like DNP, and my hands are very clammy and sweaty, and it's very easy to get flat also. So I had to increase my carbs, and fat loss is just continuous. So when my mom was here for 3 weeks, obviously eat a little bit more off diet. She wanted to eat Thai food and Italian and Japanese, and she had a whole list of restaurants ready. So we went to all of them, and I'm no longer at a point where I bring Tupperware. So, if we go out to a restaurant, I'm just going to eat. And normally I would just get chunky in that setting, but I didn't. So that's a first. After 3 weeks of eating in restaurants, I barely gained any fat. So it took me 1 week to get back on the program, and now I'm continuously losing fat. So I did some blood work after the 4-week mark, but I was also on Tren. So I saw that my cystatin C went up slightly. That always happens to me when I'm on the Tren bologna sandwich. And now I'll do blood work again in, I think, this weekend or the weekend after, and I'll release a video about high-dose SLU. But so far, so good. I didn't see any negative effects besides my wallet being drained, because it's not cheap. But it's cheaper than, doing the capsules, because I got the powder from China, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so far, so good. But I'll do some blood work, and then I'll make a video about it and then draw my conclusions.
What's the total? What's the total usage of everything?
400 milligrams per day.
No, of everything combined.
Everything combined. Oh, yeah. You have 20 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, fuck, here we go. I was on 300 tests, 300 Deca, and 150 Tren, because I ran out of mint.
Okay.
So I did I ran out of mint, and I didn't want to get more. So I ran 25 milligrams Tren, because, okay, that's fun. 50 milligrams Tren per week. Okay, that's fun. I was like, fuck it. I have 6 weeks left on 150 milligrams. I had 1 vial of Tren left. So I did 6 weeks on 150 milligrams Tren. It's not the end of the world. So it's 750 milligrams total. Yeah. So that's pretty okay steroid-wise. Then I did 1 milligram Increlex and mitochondrial support stack. So that's 1 milligram MOD-C, 1 milligram SS31, 10 milligrams methylene blue, and then a whopping, albeit animal dose extrapolated, clinically approved dose for animals, 400 milligrams per day. So that's 100 milligrams 4 times per day, but because the half-life is pretty short, and I had one of those microgram scales, but in the end, I just eyeballed it with a little spoon, because I measured it for 2 weeks, 100 milligrams so many times. It's this looks pretty accurate. So sometimes it's 90 milligrams, sometimes it's 120. So I'll probably end up between 350 and 450 per day. And it's strong, very energetic.
1 milligram of, you said, Increlex a day?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's close to the actually, it's already expired. Expired September 2025. So I have 3 vials to go. And so that's another 120 days at 1 milligram a day. Yeah, I like it more than GH.
Okay.
I started GH yesterday at 6. Yeah, I started GH yesterday at 6 IUs, and today I'm sleepy AF. So at least from Increlex, I don't get sleepy. Mm-hmm. The bumps are insane.
Do you feel good on it, though?
Yeah.
Some guys have told me they don't feel great on Increlex. It definitely works, but...
Really? Wow, what did they say?
Just didn't feel very well.
Send it to me. I'll take care of it.
I think you finished it all.
Oh, shit.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, so now last week I started 600 tests, 600 Deca, and 250 Anadrol.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a potent stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, added in the GH, and now we're going to close it off until the end of the year with a bang, because again, I kept getting flat, and I kept eating more food, so the SLU was making me burn through carbohydrates quite fast. I'm at 150 carbs per day right now, still flat. So I was like, you know what, Anadrol, GH, I don't want to eat more, so I want to get lean. And then hopefully at one point this face will represent what I got going on underneath my shirt. Because with Test Deca, Anadrol, and GH, I hold a lot of water.
Yeah.
I wake up and I look nice. You're like, I look pretty lean. And then you have one meal and one workout. And you're like, ooh, the pumps are insane though. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's so far so good. Might add in a little bit of Primo later on. Take the deck out, add the Primo, maybe a little bit of Masteron. Still have some left. Unlike, remember when we warned everybody about the raw shortage?
Yeah.
And nobody stocked up?
Nope.
And I did though. And I know you guys did also. So I'm enjoying myself running Test and Primo and Masteron. And everybody else is like, Steve, where'd you get it? I said, I got it last year.
Yeah.
When we know the shit was going to hit the fan.
Don't listen.
Yeah, nobody listened. So surprisingly, I think some people at the Mr. Olympia showed that they were not really able to source high quality gear, even though it was one of the best lineups ever. You saw it like at a couple, like in the third and second, fourth call out in classic physique and men's physique and also open bodybuilding, where some guys are like, doesn't look like your gear is real. Or you peaked horribly.
Yeah.
You know? Well.
Yeah, bodybuilding is going to get interesting.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better. Did you guys see the interview with Januszek at Think Big Bodybuilding?
I heard.
Okay. It's great. It's already at 20,000 views. And the guy from Januszek, Mike, I think his name, he said it's terrible right now. People can't even get tests.
Yep, I see that here.
Fuck, dude. Well, I think price is going to get even higher soon.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, but
it's not even a price thing. If there's just no supply, what are they going to do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. TRT prescribed.
Could.
Yeah. I know a clinic. Few.
well, in the UK, a TRT prescription of 4 shots of sustanin per month, or even 2 every 2 weeks, is around 250 pounds. So it's
Wow.
They dose the Sustanon 1 shot every 2 weeks.
Yeah, some of the TRT clinics in the UK do once every 2 weeks.
It's got to feel good.
And then some of the clinics that then offer testosterone and anti or cypionate as like a single vial, or it's normally a multi-dose vial. The prescriptions are insane in cost. That's why a lot of people in the UK sort of go underground for their TRT. Just from the sheer markup of what it is to get it pharmaceutically.
Yeah, it's the same in most countries. The TRT prices are insane. My neighbor, he started TRT a couple months ago, and he got it prescribed here through a reputable clinic, and they were charging him an arm and a leg. So I told him, watch this YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, about how to self-administer TRT, and then he just started buying it at the pharmacy that I recommended, and now he spends like $10 a week or something, on his test and Aromacin and some ancillaries. So he's like, man, it's been less than $50 a month now. And that's how much TRT should cost, in my opinion. Unless you need real proper guidance, like the guidance, okay, fine. A coach or some doctor that you have to pay for, fine. But if you know what to do, self-prescription is reasonably inexpensive.
Yeah.
So, well, it is what it is. So we're now like 50 minutes into this podcast. We wanted to talk about kidney health. So let's transition into that. Last time we talked a lot about blood pressure management. People got upset, but that's okay. Because Telmisartan should be around year-round. So I think now is a good time to kind of transition into kidney health and how to manage that. It's not so many things we can discuss, obviously, because, well, once the kidneys are broken, you're kind of done and dusted for, right? Career's over. So most of the stuff that we do is preventative. One of that is managing your blood pressure. So let's not hammer on that again. I want to start with Dean, because you're a doctor.
So I'm told.
Yeah, someone said, yeah, you're a doctor. I just play one online. At least I don't hold it, above everybody's head, that I'm a doctor. So, maybe you can share some insights on where to get started with kidney health besides managing blood pressure. Hydration is always important.
I think when we look at the causality of kidney disease and do steroids themselves cause kidney disease, I don't think we have conclusive evidence in humans to say that steroids cause kidney disease. It's almost a secondary artifact. I guess one thing that may occur is if you've got genetic underlying susceptibility for glomerular sclerosis, whether that is primary or secondary. So normally what you'll see most pro bodybuilders end up with is focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, FSGS.
That's what Flex Wheeler ended up getting. Yeah.
And sometimes that can be primary driven by oxidative stress, no doubt from anabolic steroids, blood pressure, but there can be changes in the tubules of the kidney genetically. So I guess most people probably won't screen their genetics to see are they at risk of kidney disease before going down this path. But the most important thing, obviously we've covered it in the last podcast, blood pressure is at the very top for kidney health because the kidneys are basically taking the brunt of that pressure. The way I was trying to explain it is, imagine your kidneys are like a spider web, that those glomerulars are like a spider web, very delicate. They catch and filter selective things. If you drop some water onto a spider web gently, it'll pass down through the spider web out the other side. Or if you get a hose and you blast the spider web with a hose,
you get an angry spider.
Yeah, you get an angry spider. But that's sort of the analogy you have to think in your head of if you're blasting these glomerulars that are very delicate web type structures with high blood pressure, eventually over time, little tiny tears are going to occur and they're not going to selectively catch or filter what they're supposed to. So I guess without even segueing into blood pressure, oxidative stress is the very first place to begin with the kidneys. Some really useful interesting research around the use of glutathione, cordyceps mushroom towards improving kidney health. We've also got some nice, I guess, Chinese herbal studies with astragalus for selectively removing some creatinine from the bloodstream. And I guess, when we're looking at kidney health, we shouldn't really panic surrounding a creatinine value specifically, in that the amount of things that are going to influence creatinine, like our liver markers, training intensity, creatine supplementation, high protein diet. If we're really trying to assess kidney filtration rate, we'd probably be best avoiding creatine as a supplement for 2 weeks, lowering protein intake down to maybe 1 gram per pound body weight, resting for 4 days prior to your blood draw. And this is only if we were really suspecting that creatinine value is creating a very low filtration rate. But the other thing, I guess, to make people aware of is that the EGFR calculation is based on the normal population. So it doesn't take into account BMR. So it doesn't take into account how much muscle mass you're carrying, your age, your height, your race. So we see that there's difference between blacks and Caucasians in terms of the effects on blood pressure and EGFR and creatinine production. That it's more so then we have to then decide based on other factors, like you said earlier, cystatin C or ADMA. There's other markers that we can use to really accurately assess the kidneys.
You have the DMSA and ADMA. I tried to look for testing them here in Thailand, but they're not available. But cystatin C is, so it's dimethyl.
What was it? Asymmetric dimethylarginine,
right?
ADMA. And that's more so really a marker of ADMA is involved in nitric oxide breakdown. So it just gives us an idea surrounding oxidative stress in relation to the kidney health.
So if you're on methylene blue, then you might get a skewed level. Because it
Correct.
inhibits nitric oxide synthase
Correct.
at higher dosages.
I think, in terms of like first step kidney health 101, oxidative stress is at the top. And managing it properly, NAC or glutathione or your glycine, glutamine, things that are playing into the creation of glutathione. And then do we have data to say, like what we've discussed in the past with the steroid ranking, that certain steroids are more nephrotoxic towards the kidneys? I don't think we have that data other than the rabbit study that we always bring up about Boldenone.
Yeah. Well, there's actually quite a few studies that studied the effects of Boldenone in animals and humans. And the humans are all retrospective studies, obviously, because it would be unethical to kind of prescribe people Boldenone and then see what happens on with the kidneys. But long story short, the conclusions of most of these studies show that the nephrotoxic effects of Boldenone can be prevented or ameliorated with antioxidants, whether that's vitamin C or royal jelly. So that's an extract in the honey production process. What was it? Cordyceps and a few other things that ameliorated the negative effects of Boldenone. So I always recommend it if you run Boldenone, which is the only steroid that has been studied in the context of kidney toxicity. I think there was one Anabolic study as well showing some kidney toxicity. That it's very important to take your antioxidants. And luckily, people are now coming full circle to reintroduce antioxidants again because, the natural community was going a little bit hard on preventing antioxidant intake, especially around training, around the train before or after, because it blunts the post-exercise stress response. And of course, natties need every angle they can get so they would not take antioxidants. And then the steroid community did a poor extrapolation from that. But we don't need it too, because otherwise our steroids are not going to work. Right? So they avoided antioxidants altogether. Well, that's a good way to get to kidney problems if you're running Boldenone or perhaps some other steroids. And the funny thing is, like these studies that were performed in Boldenone on the animals and the humans have not been reproduced in other steroids. So based on the chemical composition, it's very likely that any kind of steroid, due to oxidative stress, could cause some kidney problems. But unfortunately, it's never been studied. So people say that Boldenone is kidney toxic. Yes, but the other steroids probably also, unless you take some freaking antioxidants. And it seems not to matter what kind of antioxidant, as long as you take some antioxidant. And it could be methylene blue, glutathione, NAC, vitamin E. Estradiol has some antioxidant effects in the endothelium. So I think if you keep your antioxidant status quite high, you're already preventing a world of pain later on in life. And that always makes me wonder, all these bodybuilders that got kidney problems, how bad was their oxidative stress? In hindsight.
I guess.
I was just going to say, in the human studies, was the EQ run solo? Well, it was when it's Primobolan, right? Not Equipoise. Yeah,
Primobolan. Yeah. So some were used Primobolan and others were using underground labs. So you don't know the carrier oil. You don't know how much benzoate, benzo alcohol was used. Some people are allergic to those. You don't know. They weren't tested.
Okay. Well, I would say standard for EQ would be 2 and 20 for BABB.
Yeah.
So like in order to make it liquid at 200. Now I was just curious because I wonder if it were used solo, if the full suppression of estradiol from the EQ alone could have just allowed some oxidative stress to occur.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So it wasn't necessarily, again, EQ directly. It was what else the EQ on its, like who would run EQ on its own?
Yeah. A lot of Europeans did that back in the day.
Well, horses. Horses. It's a naturally occurring hormone in horses, so it's different in horse.
Yeah, and beetles, I think.
Oh, cows.
Yeah, no, I think
one study with cows, right? And they did. They have the control group and then the Equipoise group, and when they tested them both at the end of the study, they all tested positive for Equipoise. They realized that cows produce Boldenone as well.
Right. Yeah. It's It's funny in that sense that only Boldenone has been extensively studied in this context and not the other hormones, where you would expect, in a safety and efficacy profile study, that Masterone or Primobolan or Trenbolone at least would have some scientific data. But again, Masterone and Primobolan is paper thin and only in the context of cancer.
Yeah.
And Trenbolone, there's nothing to be found unless you go to the vault of Merck.
Yeah, and there was nothing on kidney stuff there.
No,
it was more it was trials on outcomes of pregnant women and things like that.
Yeah.
Probably the reason why they did the EQ is when it was Parenteral, it was around from 1939 to 1979. So it was a prescription drug for a long time.
Yeah.
But hard to find. I don't know a lot of bodybuilders from the 70s that even had access to it, even though it was around.
Yeah, and otherwise they probably got the veterinary grade, 50 milligrams per 1 milliliter.
Ganabol or whatever.
Yeah, Ganabol. Oh, man. Or the big Pfizer Equipoise bottles, 50 milliliter. Yeah, the ones you can fucking hammer somebody to death with. So in that context, like scientifically, there's not much to go with. And we do know that oxidative stress and high blood pressure obviously is deleterious to kidney health. But I always wonder if there's something else. Regarding Boston Lloyd passing away, right? He was pretty reckless. But we always suspected that due to his abuse of adipotide, that his kidney started to fail really later on in life. So adipotide is a peptide that causes apoptosis in the fat cells, and you have to inject that sub-Q. But obviously, if you inject something subcutaneously, it might go systemic, and it could probably also cause apoptosis in the nephrons. So I always tell people to avoid compounds like adipotide, because that sounds like kidney disease in a bottle, basically, or kidney failure in a bottle. Yeah, people still use it, though. I'm fine. You're fine until you're not.
Yeah, right. Well, kidneys don't really show physical stress until they're at 25%. And at that point, you're on dialysis. Because mine was functioning at 40, and I had no physical signs that it was.
Oh, yeah, you have one kidney, right?
Yeah, I have unilateral renal agenesis.
Okay. So you have to be extra careful. So you make. Yeah,
go on. No, you can go on.
I'm just wondering, of course, you learn to live with that. So maybe you can give some insight on what you typically avoid, what you have to do proactively to keep your single kidney functioning to highest capacity.
So it's not as rare as people would think. It seems to mostly be occurring in men. When women are born with, so it's something you're born with. It's supposed to be on chromosome 6. It's a defect of chromosome 6. I don't have a defect on my chromosome 6, so they're not sure where mine came from. It's generally carried on the mother's side down and expressed in the son. It's found in mothers with double uterus. A lot of times will pass on that kidney gene, but again, they don't understand the connection there. I didn't discover it till I was 40.
Right.
And I was out of the gym at that period of time for a decade. And I was drinking a lot of alcohol at that time, which sure did not help my kidneys. I had smoked in the past, which probably didn't help my kidneys. Not eating any sort of structured diet for that period of time as well. And when it was discovered, my EGFR was a 40. So again, no physical signs that it was running poorly, but close enough that it was a trouble. At that point, I just went back to the gym. I stopped drinking. I haven't drank since. My diet, I cleaned my diet back up and I went back to what I'm doing now. I did introduce testosterone at that point, which, just for general health, my testosterone was low. Later on, I introduced growth hormone, which probably was the largest contributor to improving my kidney function. My EGFR is now a 108.
Okay. So
it went from 40 to 108 and regrew my nephrons.
And it's an EGFR based on cystatin C or creatinine?
Even my regular EGFR with weight muscle mass not included was 108.
Okay.
So that was probably the largest contributor for me. But the warning is if people are using underground lab GH, that's not necessarily going to have the same effect, right? Because of the Biloximir 188 that we talked about in the liver one, right? Did we talk about in the last video?
Yeah.
The additive, that can cause so I usually see what guys do in the generic stuff when they get to like 6 IUs or 2 milligrams, the kidney function starts to go down. Right? When they titrate the dose down, a lot of times it'll go back up. That doesn't mean every single brand of underground lab GH is going to do that, but we don't know what grade fillers they're using. That's the issue.
No, and they don't test for that. At Januschik or the other labs, they don't test for the
They're
fillers.
just isolating the GH part. So just a warning, I wouldn't go try to mimic that at home yourself without. So I'm monitored by a doctor. So it's a little different. I don't think I do anything crazy out of the ordinary to maintain it. Like I said, I would never drink alcohol again. I use creatine. So creatine in recent studies has actually shown it improves kidney function, especially in people with kidney disease. My protein is a gram per pound or a little more. That doesn't affect kidney function in my case.
That's pretty low.
Yeah, I burnt it down a little bit. I think I used to eat more. I don't even know what it was doing when I was eating that much. Yeah, I don't think anything out of the ordinary. I think it's just being aware. I don't play any contact sports anymore, things like that.
All right. And the last thing you want is some high impact to
yeah, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not supposed to ski anymore. That kind of stuff. But I don't think anything really out of the ordinary. Just, get labs.
Right. Keep track of it.
And it's, it could be worth getting, some scans or ultrasounds just to have a look at your organs. Because like I said, it's not that rare. They usually find it during an autopsy, though. Most men aren't aware that they have it for most of their life.
Right. So it's something you live with, and then it progresses to the point that it's still livable till you pass away.
Well, what was fascinating is, I guess, a lot of people with, not necessarily the majority, but a lot of people with it will end up developing high blood pressure or diabetes or something related to kidney health like that. And so then the doctor will start to figure out what's wrong. I didn't have any of those signs. My blood pressure was always normal. Obviously, I'm not overweight. I don't have diabetes. I don't have any of the classic symptoms of someone with kidney issues.
Right.
So it went undetected. And when you're younger and the doctor palpitates to feel your organs, I don't know what he was feeling because there's no kidney there. So.
That's misdiagnosis of the century, right? It's
when they're
please, sir, please do an ultrasound or an MRI. So see what's going on. Yeah, I've had my fair shares of ultrasounds and MRIs on the kidney because creatinine super high, 1.95 at my highest when it was very, very heavy and doing too many sets to failure and taking too much creatine. And then you realize when you do more research, and this is what many bodybuilders go through. Right? First, you do your creatinine test. You get your EGFR, it's like 50 or something like that. And the doctor's giving you the fear-mongering, preachy, talk that you're going to die. And then later on, you realize that, okay, creatinine can be elevated from training intensity and poor hydration and creatine supplementation. And, of course, you can look into other biomarkers regarding your kidney health, like creatine phosphokinase, blood urea nitrogen, and cystatin C, or the asymmetrical dimethylarginine.
Arginine.
Yeah, okay. So that one. That's what you find out later because general practitioners never bring that to the forefront. Now some of the TRT clinics talk about cystatin C and what is it, ADMA? SMA?
SMA, I can't remember what it is off the top, but it's a marker of oxidative stress.
No, the ASMA, asymmetric dimethylarginine.
ADMA, sorry.
ADMA, sorry. Okay. So later on, you figure out that that's actually the correct way to keep track of it and protein in your urine. That's an early indication. So I don't know about you guys, but over the last decade, I've coached many a bodybuilder through the protein in the urine scare back to good health by recommending them to keep their estrogen in range, looking into their oxidative stress, their blood pressure, and using something like astragalus root extract to lower the inflammation around the kidneys. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always gets resolved. I think a slight amount of albumin in the urine is livable. Of course, it's not ideal, but if you see a protein +1 on your urinalysis, that's when I would start to worry. So have you guys seen that? And then, how reversible is that? Well, what have you done to kind of improve the conditions of these bodybuilders? Because it's still happening when it shouldn't. It shouldn't happen anymore.
I guess what you've touched on there is the size of the protein. So when we're looking at detecting creatinine in the urine. Creatinine is a tiny little molecule. And then the next step up is cystatin C, which is even bigger. So if you put into Google, anyone watching this, if you put creatinine molecular shape or molecular size, cystatin molecular size, and then albumin, you'll see the difference in the gradient of size of the amino acid structure. With albumin, I guess at that point, if you have a big giant protein not being filtered back into the bloodstream by the kidney, so the kidney should basically be quite selective in what it filters. If you have a big massive hole that's allowing the albumin to pass down into urine collection, I think once you've got a level of albuminuria, as in you've got albumin versus proteinuria, it's going to be quite difficult to reverse repairing, like the analogy with the spider web, where you've got a big giant hole in the spider web. At that point, you're probably best off playing to your strengths and removing some of the stuff that's going to put pressure on the kidneys themselves, so that filtering capacity. So that's where some of the myths of high protein intakes being damaging to the kidneys come from, because obviously if you've got albuminuria in your urine and you're eating a very high protein diet, you're creating albumin within the body, which is then passing into your urine. So it's coming as a direct artifact of your nutrition. So you reduce your protein, of course, you're going to have less protein in your urine then. But it doesn't necessarily mean that a high protein diet is the cause for having the kidney disease in the first place.
Yeah. Or that you fix your kidneys somehow in the meantime.
Correct.
You're just leaking less because you consume less.
Correct. And it's sort of, I think at that point, your strategy is to almost, I wouldn't say cheat the result, but you've got a damaged kidney, which is going to be quite difficult to repair. So your strategy is basically, how can I preserve the function of the kidney as it is now versus repairing the kidney? So it's not like the liver, where we know the liver has those BMSC stem cells that can come in and repair the liver to an extent. It's very, very unlikely that you're going to get stem cell infiltration in to repair nephrons that have been damaged. Like a nephron, if you look at the anatomy of a nephron versus the anatomy of like a hepatocyte, a liver cell, nephrons are so complex in that you've got at least 10 distinct sections to it that are doing different jobs based on the point along the nephron. It's not just like a liver cell. It has CYP enzymes. It produces bile. It's a very relatively simple cell. The nephron, has a filtering capacity, has a reabsorption, it's tightly controlling the blood volume. It's correcting blood volume drops with renin. It's retaining sodium. It's excreting potassium, and it's regulating glucose. There's so many different things to it that once it's damaged, your best strategy is offsetting further damage than, I'm going to fix my kidneys. And like I said, when people see these changes in creatinine falls from removing creatine, not training to failure, not eating a high protein diet, some antioxidants. Yeah, of course, on paper, the EGFR is going to go up because it's a calculation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the actual physical structure has repaired itself. At that point, to be honest, when you've got some level of kidney disease or kidney damage, bloods are useful to sort of monitor a track and progression of the disease. But really using something like CT scans of the kidneys or ultrasounds to track the physical progression of the organ in real time is really a better solution. Like you brought up, anyone listening to this that's sort of worried about kidney health or what they're doing, 100 urine test strips on Amazon cost about $9.
True. Yeah.
And that, like, for the cost of like 9 cents a test, you could do one test every day and it's 3 months covered. What are you talking, like $45 to cover yourself for the year? Not even at $36, 4 quarters. It's a very inexpensive way. And then if you want, whenever you see your primary care physician, get them to do an advanced ACR test where they actually look at albumin to creatinine ratio of your urine to give you an even better insight.
Yeah, you can also do a 24-hour urine collection test. I would recommend everybody to do that twice a year. It's very cumbersome, obviously, because if you drink like 4 to 6 to 8 liters of water, you have to collect all of it. You can't miss a drop, because that's how they get the actual glomerular filtration rate based on your urinary cystatin C and urinary creatinine levels compared to what's in your blood. And if you miss one urine, then obviously the calculation is not going to be correct. So that's what I would recommend everybody to do at least once or twice per year. And it's cumbersome, but it's less cumbersome than going in for an MRI or a CT scan. You know, this you could do from the comforts of your home. You bring a bag with you to the gym. If you pee there, and then you collect everything and just throw it in a big jug and then take it with you to the clinic. Let's say, hey, look at all the urine I produced. Aren't you proud of me? I got like 10 liters. It was disgusting. So, and then I did the ultrasound, right, to see if anything was going on. I had one of those, you know, health preaches from the doctor after my creatinine was like 1.9. So I did the 24-hour urine collection test and an ultrasound, and everything came back normally. And you see that the funny thing is the eGFR can be super low. And then you do the actual GFR based on the creatinine from your urine and the blood results. And then you see, okay, creatinine is high in my blood, but it's also high in my urine, and it's actually filtering appropriately. Mm-hmm. You just produce a lot more. And then you check your cystatin C, and it's perfectly in line, like 0.68 milligrams per liter. And you're like, okay, I can breathe again. But I think many of these bodybuilders, including myself, you know, when you don't know yet, you get scared, and then you go through the ringer of all these tests. But I think it's important to keep doing that every year because, you know, blood pressure you can manage, obviously, liver will regenerate, but the kidneys are once it's broken, it's kind of broken forever. And I don't really feel that stem cells are that conclusive to make it better. And, well, you could do a kidney transplant, but with the rejection drugs, you know, and then the invasive surgery, I don't think that's a permanent solution either. And then kidneys, after a surgery, how long do they last? 7 to 10 years? Something like that? You know, it's not like they last the rest of your life. Yeah, so it's prevention is the best cure in this sense. I see a lot of guys that had proteinuria was able to reverse it, but that's never really to the point that they had like a +3 or severe albuminuria where, you know, they're beyond help, because at some point you just have to tell them to stop. I'm sure Dante Trudel could have some horror stories because everybody went to him to the point he's just like, he's exhausted because it keeps happening. And it's weird because it seems that a lot of bodybuilders still don't control their blood pressure or manage their oxidative stress, or avoid compounds like FTTP and Anabolic. You know, Kurt, did you ever get, like, in your coaching career, like guys with severe kidney problems that were irreversible?
No, I have a current client who has some ongoing kidney issues with infections in his kidneys, but he's under care of several doctors. Okay. Not sure exactly what's causing that.
Yeah, okay. I saw that Ben Chow did a show, and he had some proteinuria. He had some kidney issues, and he was able, with a lower dose and some mitochondrial peptides, was able to keep everything under control while he was prepping for a show. So that's an anecdotal report of one, that it is doable to get back on stage. Of course, he didn't post his blood work results, but what I understood from the Instagram stories is that his kidney function actually improved during this contest prep. He kept the dosages moderate, and he credits the improvement of the blood work regarding the kidney markers to the to the mitochondrial peptides like MOTS-c, SS31, and etc. Now, there isn't really much in the scientific evidence to support it, these mitochondrial peptides, but you would say that upregulating mitochondrial function and reducing oxidative stress should have some overlapping benefits in the kidneys. My kidney markers did not improve over the last year that I've been using these peptides. But then again, my kidneys are functioning perfectly fine. My creatinine is a little bit elevated, but it's not something I'm worried about. You know, did you guys see any improvement from certain compounds in kidney markers besides astragalus root extract that is able to lower creatinine to a certain extent and growth hormone to a certain extent? Not
really. I guess, like, even what you said there about peptides improving kidney function or not seeing an improvement in kidney function on blood work, I think it's very selective, because you have to then do those peptides influence creatinine metabolism, and the fact that, mechanical breakdown of muscle tissues can release creatinine, and you're going to have an increase in creatine kinase activity. I think I am very skeptical. Like blood work, like I said a few moments ago, it's not the greatest controller of kidney health management. Like you could have a very high creatinine value, and what I often say to people is your trend is more important than the actual figure. So let's say in the UK, I'm not sure of milligrams per deciliter for the US. So I always have to use a calculator, but for the UK, the cutoff I think is around 125 for creatinine in the normal range. Let's say you start your cycle and your creatinine is 110, and you're training intensely, you're having creatine as a supplement, you're eating a high protein diet, and then 6 weeks later you've put on 4 or 5 kilos of muscle mass from going back on cycle. I probably expect that person's creatinine to maybe go up 5 or 6. So go from 110 to about 115. That to me is a normal trend. And then that's a steady trend because they haven't influenced any of the factors that affect it, like training, creatine intake, dietary protein. They've kept all the variables the same, so there's no change in bias. Now, if that person's baseline was 110, they're 6 weeks on cycle, it goes to 115, and then 6 weeks later, at the end of the 12-week cycle, their creatinine is now about 145. That change in trend now to me is, well, either you've put on 15 kilos of muscle mass or something's not right with the kidneys where more creatinine is going into your bloodstream. Again, you come off cycle, you lower that creatine kinase activity, you lower obviously your muscle protein synthesis with being back to like either, TRT or whatever, that naturally you might see that creatinine level fall. And what maybe you might reflectively see is you're going from 145 back down to that baseline of 110 before you went on cycle. That sort of returning to your baseline number on your trend is saying, okay, well, something changed at that end of week, 12-week cycle, whether it was oxidative stress or whatever, which was causing more creatinine to go back into the bloodstream. But now being back at TRT, you're back to your baseline creatinine. Returning to that baseline number doesn't tell you that you didn't do damage to your kidney at that 145. It's just saying that all variables considered, you've gone back to 110.
And
so
you
again,
lost all your gains.
Oh.
Now your muscle mass is the same as before the cycle. It should stay elevated by 2 or 3 points, so you know you're keeping some of the muscle mass.
And that's just an example of like if you ended up with a very high number and then coming off cycle and going back to like your baseline TRT. And I'm talking like, let's say you go back to TRT and you're at the end of your 8 or 9 weeks TRT before going back on again.
Yeah.
At that point, again, it's not like green light that I've not done any damage to my kidneys. It's a sanity check, but the sanity check is basically, okay, should I be doing 3D diagnostics or not? Not, okay, let's just go back on cycle again. So the use of blood work, you should be trying to do further calculations. So that the Crockford-Gault equation is the main one that uses BMR. Even though BMR is very flawed, it sort of can assess your body mass ratio towards your kidney filtration. And then it's able to deduce is that creatinine value coming from muscle mass. So it changed the calculation slightly.
Right.
And then you've got the cystatin C creatinine calculation, or I think it's called the EPI calculation, that uses both values. And you can add in other variables to the calculation in terms of ethnicity, age, height, weight. And also, if you suspect that you've got unstable kidney function, it'll change to GF4 with an error ratio on it added. So then you can then actually then get a relatively good understanding of, well, how well are my kidneys working? Because you have to view EGF4 was designed for when a drug has to be administered IV, how well can the kidneys take this brunt? Because the kidneys are going to take that drug very quickly, that if kidney filtration rate is very poor, there's a likelihood that that drug administered intravenously is going to damage the kidneys, potentially irreversibly. So it's a risk decision matrix as well. With even if you're going to have contrasts, CT scans.
A gadolinium contrast and iodine, they check your kidney function first because it's very heavy on the kidneys.
And normally what they do is they'll do it's basically what they sort of term as an excessive hydration protocol, that as soon as they administer the contrast agent, they excessively flush the kidneys to dilute that compound down very quickly. It's like a shunt procedure. But, even in that case, if, let's just say someone doesn't check their kidney health and decides from listening to some of our education, I'm going to book in for a CT angiogram, when they do the follow-up prior to giving the contrast agent, they might well find out there's actually something wrong with your kidneys.
No, they will find that out before because they do extensive testing for the kidneys.
Correct.
Before, and I had to argue one time because my creatinine was elevated. Said your creatinine is too high. So I have more muscle mass. I take creatine, and I train pretty hard. So please check my cystatin C, blood urea nitrogen, etc. And they're like, okay, your kidney function is actually fine. So this is something you have to argue with the doctor as well as a bodybuilder. Okay, your creatinine might be 1.6, 1.7 even, which is linear to your body weight and training intensity. And then they might not even accept you. I've heard this from several bodybuilders as well. So they didn't want to do gadolinium contrast or radioactive iodine for a CT scan. So then you will run into this issue where you actually need to stop training, stop creatinine, and overhydrate yourself for 2 weeks leading into the CT scan. So you qualify and your kidney markers are actually in an acceptable range for the doctor. So this is always a bit of an issue. Like the more muscular you get and the more gear you take, the further you get away from what is accepted in the medical field. And you might be perfectly healthy, but on paper, it doesn't look that way. And then you can't even do the ultrasound or the CT scan because it's the same as blood donations, right? Yeah, your hemoglobin is way too high, bro. You can't donate. What am I going to do now? Let me take care of some of this hematocrit. And so, these are the problems you run into. But it's all self-induced. Right? We do it to ourselves to get so far away from the medical field and what's generally accepted. So you need to wisen up and, be a little bit ahead of the curve. Did you guys ever see a correlation between training intensity, training volume, training frequency, and creatinine levels?
Yeah.
Because I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kurt,
for
enlighten us.
Yeah. I mean, it just break down, right? Just break down protein. It's pretty simple. Yeah. And generally, if you tell guys to not train so hard for a couple of days before labs, usually goes back down. Mm-hmm. I forgot about this. I saw a former client, his creatinine got over 2 from DMP. Did you do labs when you were on DMP?
I did DMP once and I didn't run labs.
Okay. I was just curious if you saw the same thing. I don't have a ton of experience with DMP.
I was in Holland, so you can only do labs once a year. We didn't have private clinics. So I would be, like on TRT dose or off everything when I did labs. But like most of my experimentation with labs was here in Thailand because I could just run it every month if I want to.
Have you seen it with DMP?
I'm not personally, no, but I can understand why it may occur. I mean, you have to think how DMP works as a mechanistic factor of creating oxidative stress with uncoupling. Yeah. If you're creating oxidative stress in the body, like what we talked at the very beginning with something like DMP, where it's unhinged oxidative stress, it's very well likely that you're going to have the kidneys take that brunt, as well as, muscle protein breakdown with something like DMP, unless you're using something to slow down or improve nitrogen retention, like being on cycle, and having an appropriate diet set up with obviously that excessive lipolysis and free fatty acid oxidation with the uncoupling. Yeah, it's very well understandable to see someone's creatinine go sky high with DMP, especially if you're basically cooking cells from the inside out.
Yeah, I didn't advise him to take DMP. I didn't find out till he went to the hospital that he was using DMP.
Oh God.
On the opposite direction, though, I never saw kidney function go down with Boldenone with myself. So
No.
I've never seen that.
Me neither. I see hematocrit go up.
Yep.
And performance goes up, but I've never seen creatinine levels. So yeah, when I recommend Boldenone, I mean, in my recommendations would always be antioxidants. You know, I've done that before. I knew about the oxidative stress from Boldenone because I feel antioxidants are important. You know, otherwise you just look like an old man after a while. So and just oxidate your skin.
And figuring out the ratio between test and EQ, right? So you're not running it at a weird amount, right?
Exactly. So you keep your estrogen nicely at the top of the reference range or slightly over. So no, the kidney issues from Boldenone is in the scientific evidence, but anecdotally for the bodybuilders who bodybuild, who know how to do this properly and stay healthy, no issues. I've seen it with DMP, you know, other people, obviously, and then other drugs worsening kidney functions or uncontrolled blood pressure, where you just, you know, see creatinine or rhabdomyolysis, which also happens sometimes, but that's usually in the endurance athletes where they're like, I'm going to run a marathon, and then they don't, you know, consume adequate carbohydrates. And then they get rhabdomyolysis, and then their CPK is like 25,000 and creatinine is 4, and you know, shaking, shivering in the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, and then they come back from that also. You know, this is hydration for 3 days, 4 days, and it's perfectly fine again.
My record with CK looking on blood work is 12,000 in a world's strongest man athlete. So someone's yet to beat that record. But everything was creatinine was perfect. Cystatin C was perfect. So it shows you the training intensity that these guys train at is
12,000.
Unhuman.
Yeah.
I think the highest I ever got it was 3,500, 5,000, something like that. Yeah. Got to train harder.
What you were saying before about labs and kidney function, I have scans done on mine. That's why I know there's an improvement. We're not just going by markers in the blood, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's important to do the scans. You know, it's cumbersome and annoying, and you have to go through the doctor and explain why that you want to be preventative. But I think it's important to do every 6 months, or depending on how hard you're sourcing, or at least once a year. Of course, if you're on TRT, you're managing your blood pressure, you know, once every 5 years, fine. But if you're like, for me, I use drugs to experiment and make videos about. So I go in the hospital all the time just to make sure that I'm okay and that I don't need to pull the plug, or that I need to pull the plug because the experiment is a little bit too crazy for my liking, you know. So I do it frequently just to stay on top of my health. But so far, knock on wood, besides that bout with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which was food-induced, not drug-induced, you know, prevented from taking drugs, obviously, because of the stem cells in the liver. But yeah, I was able to resolve that as well. So I do notice that with training intensity, sometimes back in the day, you get clients and they really like their drop sets and high intensity, right? Their hours in the gym. And you see that the creatinine, the CPK is really high. And then you bring them down to you know, maybe a more frequency, higher intensity, but low volume approach. And then the CPK and the creatinine goes down, and they actually start growing because there's a lot less muscle breakdown instead of doing these crazy triple drop sets. And they're like, I'm finally growing, and my kidney markers are improving. Yeah. So you're not burning yourself away from the inside out. Yeah. So all these little things, you know, can contribute as well. And that's why I think that some of the bigger guys that train that way and have a high protein or a high carbohydrate diet, which also acts protein sparing, obviously, because it's an energy source more readily available than protein. So you have less muscle protein breakdown. I think their creatinine levels are actually quite okay because they train optimally and they eat optimally. And there's very little breakdown of protein. And that's represented in the serum creatinine and creatine phosphokinase.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I drink carbs while I lift too, to prevent.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think one of the reasons why my creatinine levels are a little bit higher is because due to a ketogenic diet, I'm always on a high protein diet, and I don't do inter-workout carbs because that brings me out of ketosis. I have post-workout carbs, 70 grams from fruit, but it's not much, or 150 in this case. But most of the time, it's 70. And,
You mean you're not doing the fruit diet? We done with that?
No. I tried that.
Just kidding.
And then my insulin levels were all over the place. It was fun though. It's fun to eat a lot of candy. I felt like a little boy. I felt like a teenager. I felt like Halloween every day. Man, what a fun 2 months that was. No, nobody does it now.
Yeah, that went away quickly. Did we ruin that for everyone?
Yeah. It's like one of those fad diets. I tried it though. I me and Chase, we tried it. Chase came off of it after a couple of weeks. I think Mark Bell stopped. I stopped after 4 days. It was fun while it lasted, man. Yeah.
I think probably a dirty side that we've not discussed is the D word when it comes to kidney health.
Diabetes.
That and diuretics.
Oh, diuretics.
Diuretics,
we're
talking about
the elephant in the room.
The sugar diet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm considering the weekend that has gone by and some of the protocols I've seen sometimes utilized in the past. It's no wonder that some of the 90s bodybuilders ended up with kidney problems where you're sucking the kidneys dry almost like the Sahara Desert.
Mercury-based diuretics, baby. Here, drink this. Here, have this. What is it, Chad? It'll make your first place. Okay.
Between injectable Lasix and, I think what obviously what everything we've noticed over the last 2 years with bodybuilding since we started this podcast, that people are doing less crazy shit now when it comes to
they're talking about it less because they don't want to get outed.
Yeah.
That too. I mean,
some crazy shit, man.
I've seen a well-known pro bodybuilding coach. This is now like 4 years ago. And one of the peaking protocols was a 50 milligram diazide every 6 to 8 hours from 4 to 5 days out. All the way up to stage. Yeah. 5 days. So
his competitor ended up like a mummy on stage, or what?
It's not even a mummy. It's the end of the posts, like the homeostatic rebound.
Yeah, talk about blood pressure.
A blood pressure. You end up with like a competitor that ends up like a Michelin man of, like the Marshmallow Man with excessive antidiuretic hormone basically just goes out the window, and now the person's sucking up every ounce of fluids that they're eating or drinking post-stage. The mineral imbalance heading for an arrhythmia. So when it comes to like kidney health, diuretics can be a big contributor towards chronic kidney disease.
Yeah.
And it can be so acute in terms of the window that it's been used that the damage that's done from that acute use is irreversible long term. So, we've done the podcasts on peaking and getting ready for shows.
Right.
If someone has to, manipulate diuresis and help their body expel a bit of fluid, being a bit more intelligent with diuretic usage, understanding, metabolically their blood panel, if they've got, healthy magnesium, sodium, potassium, chloride on their bloods before even messing with diuretics again on stage.
What's interesting is that with a Telmisartan and Empagliflozin before bed, you can actually induce enough diuresis the night of or the day before the show, and that you just get a dry of a look without this excessive sodium or potassium excretion that you get from traditional diuretics. So we're talking about 20 to 40 milligrams Telmisartan and 25 milligrams Empagliflozin, or what is it, half the dose of dapagliflozin, but Empagliflozin is a little bit easier to source. It can dry you out quite nice and reduce a load of sodium without this weird aldosterone rebound. And it seems to be quite favorable if you do growth hormone loading. So you use the Empagliflozin to remove a little bit of the sodium and the glucose that might be excessive after a carb load. Whereas with the diuretics, you flush out all the water. It takes the water away from your intestinal tract and the kidneys, obviously. And then you have blood pressure issues and constipation. The coaches and the competitors I talk to, they switch to Empagliflozin and Telmisartan for diuresis instead of. Then you might, if you go a little bit crazy post show, you use a little bit of aldactone to kind of keep the diuresis going. But again, with Empagliflozin, you can retain the sodium balance quite well. And then, of course, you get the added benefit of the glucose excretion, where you don't get into this weird hormonal diabetes roller coaster because you're celebrating eating cheesecakes 24 hours a day,
I was going to joke that you mean you don't correct spill with more diuretics.
Yeah, but you do IV Lasix every 6 hours, right? Yeah. Right on the clock. 20 milligrams furosemide and 2 mLs. Fuck, man. Back in the day, that was all that was available, dude.
Yeah, no one was really using SGLT2s as an intelligent way of cleaning up.
I'm going to get so many emails about this right now, and I already know.
Yeah, we're giving away the secrets.
Yeah, shit.
People are going to be like, huh? So we can use diabetic medications to correct getting broken up peaks.
What about metformin? Can I use metformin? If you want to have a bloated stomach on stage, sure. Sure.
Well, that aside, diuretics and kidney health, never mind steroids, you add diuretics, heavy stimulant use, excessive water consumption, there's a lot of peaking protocols that relied around water ramping, which makes sense. Which makes sense on paper, but again, with every sort of swing, there's a roundabout that if you drive water intake up higher and higher and higher, you're obviously diluting blood sodium with the excretion, and the whole thought process there was basically that your body's going to accommodate diuresis to whatever fluid intake you ramp up to. So like, let's say normally you're drinking 4 liters and then by the end of the week you're drinking 10. The kidneys get used to accommodating that 10 liter excretion, that when you stop drinking the fluid, you continue to excrete or overshoot. But it's a temporary change with aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone. Yeah, it's going up, and then eventually ADH comes up to meet it, and you've got about an 8 to 10 hour window to take advantage of, and then biology takes over.
And then you retain everything, and that's how you get heart failure.
Yeah, and then obviously the blood pressure impacting the kidneys. So post-show kidney health management, never mind running a cycle into a show, the 2 or 3 days peaking, if you start doing silly things, can mess up your kidneys. Doing everything right leading into the show. It's usually after the show that you damage yourself. There's actually several Thai bodybuilders that died here. They did the Mr. Thailand, right? They do the aldactone and the Lasix protocol, the 1 week on aldactone, 100 milligrams a day, and then injectable Lasix or a tablet Lasix the night before the show, right? To make weight and get into the class and stand constipated on stage, but good enough to win. Then they qualify for Southeast Asia Championships or Asia Championships. You're like, fuck, man, I got to be in shape in 3 months. I better start eating because I can only eat for a week, and then I need to get back on a diet. And then they retain everything. They stop the diuretics, they stop the cycle, and they retain all that water. They gain 25 kilos, not pounds, 50 pounds, dude. And they have a heart attack. And this happened multiple times here in Thailand and all over Asia because these guys, they don't know. They just eat like assholes, and then they don't pee for a week, basically, and then their heart fails. Yeah. It's insane, dude. So luckily, the English-speaking bodybuilders, they're a little bit more aware. You shouldn't do that,
Steve, can you discuss the growth hormone loading thing that you were talking about?
Okay. So growth hormone loading is basically, for the guys that are not 100% in shape, they take the growth hormone out 3 weeks before. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, true conditioning is hard to get by.
Yeah.
And look at Samson Dauda and Andrew Jack this weekend from the Olympia. They're finally in shape. After how many shows? Right? And then both of them were small. That's why Andrew was fourth. Samson was third because he retains the muscle a little bit better. For the guys that have never been in shape, you take the growth hormone out and you manipulate the drugs a little bit to get fullness for something else, maybe from Superdrol or Halotestin, whatever. You take the growth hormone out at the 2-week, 3-week mark, and then you reintroduce it the last couple of days, the last 2 days, for example, before the show, to restore a little bit of fullness that you might not get from carbohydrates or the steroids. Works very well for women.
I was going to say, yeah, and men, a little risky.
It works very well for men, but you need to run like 24 IUs per day.
Aren't you worried about water retention that would occur with it?
No, because it usually takes 3 or 4 days to sit.
Okay, so you're missing that.
Yeah, so from 1 or 2 days of growth hormone loading, especially after a weigh-in, right? You cut down you might fast or cut fluids for the weigh-in. Then you start growth hormone loading, and if you manipulate the electrolytes well, then the fullness comes back to the point that looks athletic.
Okay. And so and then the water comes after the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And then after the show, you might need to take some aldactone to kind of clear that up, or empagliflozin to kind of, because you do retain a little bit of extra sodium. So it's a careful little balancing act. But if you do it right, I did it at the World Championships many times because growth hormone doesn't show up on a urine test. They're all supposed to be natural, right, on the day of the show. So you do for the women, maybe 8 to 12 IUs, or for the men, 24 IUs, and they're off all the PEDs on the day of the show. And then growth hormone is basically the only thing you can load into them because you can't detect that in serum or in urine.
Urine.
Yeah. And then we'll get some fullness that is unique. And they're like, I can't put my finger on it. And that's exactly what I wanted. Because I look fuller than everybody else, So it's, and of course I would be there in person to kind of coach them through that protocol. And I believe, Dean, we discussed the protocol about glucagon, right? That's also a way to load up. It's also not detectable. I've never used that myself. But like all these little strategies is something you can practice with, but you need to take the growth hormone out. But hey, you don't need to take the growth hormone out if you're truly in shape.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's be honest.
I usually just lower it.
Yeah, or lower it, yeah. You go from 18 IUs to 12 or something like that. Or
most guys I'd have go 4 to 6.
Yeah. So you reduce the water retention that way. And again, if you're truly in shape and you only need a quarter diazide or something like that at the end, that's fine,
I found
so many ways to get to the stage.
I found if it was left in, you had like a much more like rounder looking physique. Whereas if I took it out for 10 days, you are absolutely like detail versus deep lines in the condition. So for me anyway, the sensitivity of the fluid or mineral retention was quite noticeable towards whether you're looking for a big visual bubbly appearance on stage or whether you really want to show the judges what sort of lines are in the glutes and hamstring.
Yeah, and it seems that the water retention is only in the muscle if you do it for 1 or 2 days. Again, it depends on the individual. Some people can get away with 3 days, but after 3 to 4 days, you start to get subcutaneous water retention and you lose detail. So it's a balancing act that most of the time paid off for my athletes. Now, keep in mind, most of my athletes were either bikini or they were covered in dream tan, where you don't see detail anyway. So you'd rather bring the fullness and the separation. Right? You give these guys a hug and it's like you've been wrestling in the mud, dude. And I gave a lot of hugs at the World Championships because a lot of my guys are top 3 in the prize money. So it's like, bring it in, bro. And then you got a whole dream tan all over your body. Yeah, disgusting. Disgusting. Yeah, but that's when I was still coaching. But I know several people do the growth hormone loading and to great success. And it does bring a nice athletic and aesthetic look to the physique. Yeah, but you retain some water after the show, so you got to be extra careful. So it's okay. You can eat the night of the show, right? You go get your Cheesecake Factory and your red velvet cheesecake, 1,800 calories, and then Sunday you're back on the diet. It's that simple. You got to deplete because you were 95, 99% carb loaded for the show. Maybe you did some fat loading, so your insulin sensitivity is already ruined. On the day of the show, you don't eat so much, right? Because you want to retain that look. You might do some growth hormone and anadrol and suspension or whatever. And then you have your cheesecake in the evening, and then Sunday you're back on the cardio machine and the dieting. You're just hydrating. But because if you continue to eat, That ain't good, man. You're beyond full. And then you turn to the Michelin Man, and your whole thing starts to. I went to my wife one time. She was like eating for 2 days, and then we flew back, and you get more water retention in the plane, right? Then by the time she arrived, oh my God, she looked like worse than she started her diet. I said, okay, we're not doing this anymore. Yeah, so the diuretics for kidney health, not a good idea, unless you stay hydrated and you control your electrolyte intake. Because some guys, like Chase, for example, he's on a low-dose hydrochlorothiazide with his high-dose growth hormone. And that seems to be working quite well, and his kidney function is intact. I think the problems come from kidney use is when you do it in combination of weird sodium and potassium protocols and water restriction, especially Lasix, like loop diuretics. They're pushing against the kidneys to excrete, but there's nothing to excrete. That's where the problems come. And again, mercury-based diuretics are just not being used anymore because they don't do diuretic testing at the Olympia anymore. But that used to be a thing. Or a coach would just recommend some weird protocol or insane diuretics and a combination thereof because they were not on the list yet. Right? And then, whatever we can do to get a diuresis effect, which again, most of these guys were in true shape. So wasn't even necessary. Then again, when you look at the pictures of the 90s, they do look a little bit better than the athletes now. So maybe you do have to sacrifice your kidneys for a couple Olympias. Hey, man. I don't know. I saw on Instagram, you see the comparison. This was Mr. Olympia 97 or something, and this is the current Mr. Olympia. Where's the detail? Where's the separation? Where's the vascularity? I'm like, there's something to say for that, So, yeah, maybe you just need to sacrifice your health to literally look absolutely insane inside out.
Although, I mean, back then, dieting mentality compared to today as well. Back then, they'd eat nuts. Sawdust. They'd eat sawdust if they were told. Today, it's like, it's been 24 hours and I haven't had a refeed. Yeah. And eat some carbs. It's like, I honestly, with some of the physiques, they have huge amounts of muscle mass. And then you've got the argument that these guys need to eat a lot of food to maintain that muscle mass. No doubt. But the point is to get on stage with like 90s conditioning, where you can like put your finger in between the striations. That today are the guys truly dieting as hard as they should be? And I think a lot of the coaches are being emotionally manipulated to keep them fed. So it's sort of like, okay, well, I need to keep this client on my side to retain this person. And in the huge
business now, you need to keep these guys. You see the fallout sometimes when a high level competitor leaves a coach. It's just drama all around. They didn't have to deal with that in the 90s. You had the bodybuilding magazines that was all filtered. There's no social media. You'd be lucky if you see one of these guys at a guest posing at your local gym or local bodybuilding show. But now everything is 24/7 full-time access. And there's a huge business, So, I think some of the coaches are a little bit complacent because they're afraid to lose the client. And coach hopping is a real thing, obviously. And then social media blows smoke up their asses. So, my coach is just telling me to fucking do 2 hours of cardio and no food. Fuck this guy. Everybody tells me I'm the greatest ever, So you have to keep it real. I lost a lot of clients this way back in the day. Because, they were the best in their country. And I told them to suck fucking up and actually come in shape, and train, keep the intensity going. Because how are you going to retain muscle mass? Yeah. And then I'm so tired. I just shut the fuck up, man. You chose to do this. Yeah, it's prep. Welcome to the real world.
I'm hungry. I'm flat.
Yeah, I'm hungry. And dude, now you can't even say that anymore because there's Retatrutide. Just use the Retatrutide. I'm hungry.
This is
Retatrutide? What are you talking about?
And that's sort of where I just, with some of the current levels of open bodybuilding, very impressive physiques. But it's the judging. The judging is rewarding fuller looking physiques beyond, 90s condition. Then it sort of comes with a game of least effort of, I just have to be just in shape or I have just a bit of indentation to my glutes and that's it. Not like walnut cracking lines, completely striate down the glutes, full separation of hamstrings. It's like I just have to be just on the mark and then my fullness will carry me through to win that. Personally, I think the sort of 90s level condition was always what I strived for.
Yeah.
Competing.
Yeah, that's why Classic is so much fun, because these guys are actually in shape. I mean, that was a great lineup this year.
When they have to make their weight.
Yeah. Like Ramon Dino, he looked inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Sommerfeld also, because he had to drop, because he was not as tall as you thought he was.
Yeah,
Poor guy.
Logan. I think Logan looked really good.
Yeah, Logan looked
Logan's
really
condition
good.
is really good.
Man, he was kind of far down. I think he needed to fill up a little bit.
His
But yeah,
condition
it's when you're in true condition and you have a weigh-in the day before or 2 days before, it's hard to load up. It's hard to load up, That's the problem with making a weight class. That is what it is.
The top 3 in Classic. For me, anyway, maybe I'm biased because I really like Classic bodybuilding. But the top 3 of Classic Physique were, the shine outs of the weekend, in my view.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That seems a little bit more attainable, even though when I stood to the next to the Ramon Dino, he dwarfed me and we were the same weight. I was like, wow, why are you so fucking... It's a whole different animal, obviously, but it seems a little bit within arm's length. If I just train hard enough, I can be a Classic guy. But if you see like, Adi Chupan or Samson Dowda, you're like, or Derek or, Andrew, you're like, I can never be this way. When I met Jay Cutler in 2006, that's how I felt. After he won the Mr. Olympia, I shook his hand. He came to Holland for the Dutch Grand Prix. I shook his hand. I was like, I can never... It will never happen for me to be like this. So I literally just said, fuck it, it's not the direction I want to go in. Because and then William Bonac and a couple other Dutch bodybuilders were there as well, but they were still not that size, that Mr. Olympia size. So I remember when I met Jay Cutler at that time, I was like, no, fuck it will never happen for me. So thank God for Classic to keep us motivated. Anything else to discuss about kidney health, or we're pretty much done?
I think for what we've covered, blood pressure aside and hydration, oxidative stress, check your protein and check your urine for protein with very simple to buy test strips on Amazon or wherever. Maybe do an ACR every 6 or 12 months. Depending on how long you've been on, maybe do an ultrasound of the kidneys. If you've been using things for at least 2 years, an ultrasound is non-invasive. It'll see if there's any shattering on the kidneys. Gives you a bit of an insight before you have to pay for either an MRI or a CT scan. And obviously the radiation with CT has to be considered. Pay attention. I've seen this. We never touched on this, but costochondritis, inflammation of the intercostal muscles, can give can give the false signal of pain around your kidneys.
You get the increased echosonicity of the kidneys, and then they worry a little bit also. Yeah, that's why it's also good to take some time off, especially if you have a thick back. Take some time off when you do an ultrasound, because again, it's not the most accurate way, and with all the muscle in between, especially if it's inflamed, it can cause some sort of false positive or misreading of the echosonicity of your kidneys. So yeah, that's important.
And then diuretics, most definitely don't do 5 days of Diazide before a show.
And I can't take Lasix in the morning if I want to look good on Instagram?
Probably not.
I knew a guy who would take a Lasix every morning and take his pictures.
Oh, wow. Every day?
Wow.
Every day. Good following, though.
Yeah. Is he still alive?
Yeah, still alive, but the following is leaving because he had to shrink down, because he had to quit. Yeah, some guys are insane, man. Some guys are insane. It's a shame, though, because the information again is out there. You don't have to destroy your kidneys. And again, it's okay to throw in the towel when you see something off in your blood work or ultrasound where you're like, I don't really feel comfortable with this. It's not bad yet, but I better stop for now and assess what's going on. Like I recently had a talk with a bodybuilder who saw a little bit of protein in his urine and just decided to come off everything and go risk averse, right, or risk off, and just let his muscle mass come down, and it improved, but there was still a little bit of protein in his urine. So he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm done. No more competing. I'm just going to do social media, and on TRT, most of us can still look pretty good. Are we look crazy? No, but if you built a good amount of muscle mass, you can sustain it on TRT, and that's pretty kidney friendly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know? So do you guys want to run the Olympia a little bit and then throw in a towel for this podcast?
Sure.
Yeah, did you guys watch it? Would you watch a live stream or something like that?
I did not. Like I said, I was at a service.
Right. Yeah, it was at service. Right. Okay, Dean, did you watch it?
I didn't watch it live. We were at my parents' for the weekend, so I had to catch up Saturday and Sunday morning. So I sort of had an embargo on social media, so I couldn't see what was going on on Saturday and Sunday, so that I didn't ruin it for myself.
So you were like off social media, no Instagram to get spoiled.
No scrolling on my phone. Anyways, answer some DMs and out of it, because I wanted to watch it. I wanted to watch back the stream. So, very, I guess the open. I was a bit. I don't know. It was always going to be a trope between Derek, Hardy, and Samson to an extent. Now, with Samson placing fourth, this sort of goes back to Samson played the conditioning game this year to come in a little bit smaller, and then compared to Derek or Hardy, who were a little more fuller for their height, that sort of look was rewarded. And I guess with open now, we're getting stuck in a never-ending loop of fullness where the detail is still amazing at pro level, but it could be just a little bit better. I know we're always going on about, more fat loss or whatever, but the detail could be a little bit better compared to what we see in classic in the open guys. But then you're having to sacrifice the fullness of what we see with Samson. So it's, I don't know, I think for the next 2 or 3 years, that bigger, softer look, if you want to call it, is getting rewarded. And when I say soft, it's not a disrespectful soft. It's just not that granite hard conditioning.
Yeah, I think that's the thing of the past in open.
Hardy has it a little bit from the back, that sort of graininess, but then from the front, that doesn't really display the same way. I don't know. I think it's all up in the air now whether Derek will hold it. It's nice to see someone repeat what Jay done in 2009, wasn't it? To come and re-win the title back.
He must be tired, though. He did the Arnold Classic and the Pittsburgh and the Mr. Olympia. That's 3 shows. Then for the Pittsburgh, he looked a little bit off. I think his best look was at the Arnold Classic. That's, in my opinion, like a top 10 physique of all time. Right? That was like perfectly peaked, perfectly full, perfectly dry, good condition, good detail. Pittsburgh a little bit off. And then Mr. Olympia was close to the Arnold, but still not quite. I mean, it's a 2-day show. It's a lot of obligations. These guys are fucking tired, Martin Fitzwater really brought it. I thought Sasan Haradi looked absolutely amazing. Didn't get a fair look.
Yeah.
Nicely balanced.
16th.
Yeah, 16th. I'd have him in the top 10 over other guys, but he's a new face. So, you got to earn your stripes, I guess. Nick had a little bit of a mistiming peak issue. Legs were a little bit small, even though his upper body was quite large, and then he had some stomach issues. So he needs to go back to the drawing board. And then, Andrew jacked really impressed me. But, I mean, how many Olympias did he do before he finally nailed it? It's like his 3rd, 4th, 5th Olympia. So can he hold that? It's like another big Ramy story, right? Where he nails it once and then gets a high placing, and then let's see what happens next year. So I'll probably go to the Arnold Classic, but I bootlegged the Olympia the first time since it was live streamed. I always bought the live stream, but after last year with the LEDs, and the back and the bad quality of the lighting, I decided, you know what, this year I'm just going to do a free YouTube stream and see what goes on. And they turned off the LEDs for the prejudging for open, but not for classic physique or the other classes. So I still felt that it was very hard to see the physiques. And and you see it in the pictures also. Like some pictures, these athletes look really, really good. And other pictures, they look completely washed out. And I think it's just the backdrop. So I decided to use my money as voting power and not vote and spending my $80 somewhere else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is lighting will make or break different physiques as well. You know, and that can create a less level playing field depending on shadows on someone's contour, shape of their body, and whatever else.
Doesn't help for Terence Ruffin. That's for sure. Can't not see anything. You just see contours because he's backlit. You know, and he's a dark guy just by himself. You know, he uses a little bit of Protan. Not as much as the other competitors. But yeah, if you're a little bit lighter skinned, then it contrasts better with the background that has a boatload of LEDs blasting in your face. So, Terence is not doing himself any favors. He should do the Arnold Classic where you get a black backdrop, or the Detroit Pro, like Fawad's show, where you get a black backdrop. I think these guys would look a lot better. So, that's why this year I didn't want to go to the Olympia. One of those reasons, because last year I was Gold VIP. I sat on row 7. And you're like, I couldn't see anything. It's a very expensive ticket not to see anything. So I'd rather go to the Arnold Classic now and then actually watch a show there where they have a black backdrop and proper lighting, where it's made by Arnold and you would have final say. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, but it was a good show, though. Still, the Mr. Olympia was a good show from a classic physique perspective. Very interesting. Very good physiques.
I find it crazy how they can have. I didn't see the exact number this year. I know last year was, I think, 42 or 43.
58.
It was 58 this year.
Yeah, wow. But a couple guys didn't make height, I think, or didn't make weight because they had to reweigh everybody.
That is, I don't know how you can judge. Like some of these guys obviously gathered points and they've won shows and they're just not getting a look in because of. No. As a judge, how can you remember beyond 3 call outs of 6, like 6, 12, 18? After that, it's just pot luck of whether
there were some amazing guys in like the 16th place, right? You don't get placed after 16th place. And you look at some of the pictures, like, how the fuck did this guy not make top 10? Of course, it's a very tough class, and it really depends on what you like. But I had a lot of guys higher than where they placed. And it's a little bit of popularity contest also, because if you're a big name, you're more likely to place higher than, a new face or somebody who's from China or from an Arab country because they don't know you. So, it makes it tough. Let's see what happens next year when they introduce the differences in the point system and make it a little bit different to qualify. But yeah, if the sanctions fees are cheaper, I believe, for classic physiques and men's physique shows. So there's more men's physique shows and classic physique shows than there are 212 and open shows. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's cheaper to host a classic and the prize money is less. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do an IFBB show alongside your NPC amateur show where you give away pro cards, then it's easier to do classic physique. Yep. Because it's easier to host and the ticket sales can be lower and you don't have to give away so much of the prize money. Mm-hmm. Whereas open now, it's almost unaffordable. Right? Pittsburgh is $100K, Arnold Classic is $500K, and then Mr. Olympia is $600K. You just take it away from 212. The Keon Pearson went from $90K to $50K. You see that?
That's just change in prize money.
Half, dude. I would be pissed. I'd be so pissed. Yeah, so I watched the bootleg and then Desktop Bodybuilding's play-by-play. It was actually quite enjoyable. Xavier did a good play-by-play, so that's what I watched. Pretty enjoyable weekend. All right, guys, let's wrap it up here. I think we have 2 hours and 15 minutes. Should be good enough. Let's do the next one about liver health.
Okay.
And then we got all the major organs met. And then after that, what organ should we do? Maybe digestion. That's going to get no views because it's not about drugs.
Brain.
The brain.
Man, you're going to ruffle some feathers there. Yeah, we could do the brain. Okay, so we do liver, brain, and then let's see what's left. But let's meet a little bit earlier because we're way behind now on the counter. So maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Cool.
we'll do another podcast. And then, plus, I miss talking to you guys. So, you know, I don't make any videos of my own. So might as well do more anabolic roundtables.
Cool.
Okay, guys, it was great to talk to you. We'll see you next time. Guys, you can find all of their social media links down below as usual. Like Kurt has the social media account and Dean also, even though they don't post much, which is shit. I would just go anabolic roundtable once a month is enough. It is enough, right? So we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. For now, we're out of time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And don't forget to like. Peace out.